Scott, for welcoming me here again. It is such a joy and a pleasure to be with you. I am Dawn Davis, and I am the Faith Formation Coordinator for the Greater St. Catharines area. And so you see me kind of every once in a while coming around. I preach in all the different churches in this area, and also many different churches in the diocese, but I focus in this area. And I have to tell you, I'm grieving a little bit because, maybe a lot, I don't know, because I'm losing a teammate. And I am both excited that Michael is moving to his new position and the work that he's done, but he was my colleague in this ministry. And so I guess I join with you in marking that transition. And so you're not alone if you're missing him. And I think what's really exciting is to see what he's going to do next. Soon the spiritual journey is interesting. As soon as you get comfy, it gets rattled and moves, right? And so this is a moving thing. The Holy Spirit is constantly in flow. So our prayers go with him for sure. I was not able to go to the event last night, so I want to send my regrets to that. And I was away, or 2 nights ago actually. I was away out of the province, so wasn't able to get there. We just heard a little story in our scriptures about a man called Nicodemus. And in the Gospel of John, there's 4 Gospels, right? This is the last one. Gospel of John, Nicodemus shows up 3 times. So we hear about him 3 times. This is the first time. We hear about this man who is super intrigued by Jesus, and so he's also a Pharisee, and he's a bit frightened that all his buddies, the other Pharisees, are not really taken to this Jesus all that well. So what he does is, in the middle of the night, under the cover of darkness, he comes out, finds Jesus, and engages in a conversation. So no one else will see him. And the conversation is an odd one, because here we have this leader of faith who's actually asking very literal, concrete questions. And you can see that their conversation is kind of going by each other. Jesus is talking about spiritual things, and he's kind of trying to figure out about literal, practical things, concrete concepts. And they're talking past each other. So that's what we see first. I don't know what Nicodemus got out of that conversation. We're left with a question. However, the next time he shows up, what we see is that he is now defending Jesus with the Pharisees, and he's got a little more courage, and he's kind of trying to come up with a way of making sure that they don't arrest him. So he kind of says, well, let's make sure that he gets due process here. So it's just a little voice on the side that sort of chirps in and kind of helps Jesus out. The third time is at the cross. Nicodemus is at the cross in full daylight. And he's brought ointment and herbs in order to anoint and clean the body for burial. And he is there with Joseph claiming the body. So something happened to Nicodemus. In 1 minute, he's frightened, and he's coming out of the dark very quietly, hoping nobody sees him in this kind of secretive way. And then he's in full daylight at the cross. What happened to Nicodemus? We don't know. The scriptures don't tell us. But my hunch is he went on a spiritual journey. And something happened to him because he encountered Jesus. He encountered the message. He came into the presence of God through Jesus, and he was changed. Now, we have heard about the story of Adam and Eve. and the garden, and the time when the apple was eaten. And at that moment, Adam and Eve instantly start to hide. And God is walking in the garden and asking, "Where are you?" And Adam and Eve are hiding. And I think that's pretty much what we all do. In some way or other, we hide. And that's kind of what Nicodemus was doing. And why wouldn't we? In the presence of God, we are known totally and seen completely. Just think about that for a minute. In the presence of God, everything falls away. We are known, all our secrets, those little selfish thoughts, those shameful moments, those times when we were less than what we had hoped we would be, those unknown motivations that we just have a hint of. All of that is revealed. But here's the thing. Not only are we totally known, totally seen, we are completely loved. However, I think those two first elements, being totally known and totally seen, is totally awful. And we're terrified by that, and we often in our lives will put up many, many barriers. So this Lent, I have a question for you, because I think each and every one of us has a different barrier. What is it that you put in the way of being totally known by God? What are you hiding behind? Hiding behind your intellect? What is it that you're hiding behind? And what would it take to drop that and to be engaged? I think Nicodemus, when he first came, was hiding behind the darkness. And what we see, at least through his life, is that he is completely aware that he is completely known and yet completely loved. What's the indication? First of all, he no longer fears. I don't know about you, but I would say that in our society, the number one thing that is hanging over all of us, fear. We're afraid. We may be in denial because of that fear, or even numb because of that fear, but we're fearful. We're fearful of the future, what's going to happen to the world with the environment, what's going to happen to the world because of the economies, what's going to happen to our church. So what's going to happen to us health-wise? We're even now afraid of viral infection. So, how do we know how to make our way forward? What do we do? Because we know that when we act out of fear, we can make terrible blunders. And if Nicodemus is any indication, the closer you draw to God and the more open you become, the more you realize that you are known completely in that relationship and yet you are profoundly loved, the more the fear disappears. And the more, I guess, nuanced the discussion gets. It's not so literal. If you notice Nicodemus, the simple answers fade away. So on this Lent, I just invite you to take a moment to ask yourself, what is it that you're hiding behind? What would it take to let down your guard and actually have an encounter with God where you are both totally known, totally seen for who you are, and yet totally loved, so that we can be able to walk forward, be a witness to this world, taking on the courage that goes beyond our own courage, let go of the fear, and step into the call that God has for us as the people of God. God's blessings on that profound and sacred journey of yours. Thanks be to God.